We often think garden products are pretty static, don't we? Maybe a new material here and there.
Yeah, not usually a hotbed of radical change.
But lately, there's been a really interesting visual twist happening over in Europe, especially with things like, well, garbage bins and storage units.
Okay.
Imagine getting that natural warm look of wood,
Yeah.
but it's actually on metal.
Wood on metal, huh? That is surprising.
It's a combination that seems to be, well, hitching on.
It really is a fascinating development. We've been looking into the data, and the technology behind it,
Mhm.
and it really shows how innovation can uh, breathe new life into even pretty utilitarian objects. We've gathered some compelling info tracking this trend and a close look at the UV printing that makes it all possible.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, our mission is really to understand why. Why are more German customers, specifically, choosing these wood grain metal garden boxes?
Right. What's the appeal?
And what's this clever trick, this UV printing, that lets you mix that natural look with, tough metal? We're going to unpack the numbers, the tech, so you get a really clear picture of this intriguing market shift.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's dive in. Why this sudden appeal for wood grain on metal?
Well, the data certainly points to a growing desire for it. If you look at Amazon Germany's TOP 100 seller data, this is from May 2023 right through to May 2025.
Okay,
Wood grain metal bins actually accounted for just over 10% of all the trash bin sales by material.
10%. Okay, that's not insignificant. How does that compare?
Well, standard metal, plain metal, still holds the biggest slice, around 55%. And plastic is also pretty significant, nearly 32%.
Right.
But that 10.2% for wood grain metal, while it's still a niche, it's definitely a noteworthy and expanding segment. It really points to an emerging preference.
Right. I mean, for years, the choice was basically plain metal or plastic for these outdoor things.
Right.
So what is the draw? Why do people suddenly want their metal bins to look like wood in the garden? Is it maybe a cultural thing, liking natural looks even for utility stuff?
I think there are a few key factors at play. First, just the aesthetics. People generally see wood tones as, warmer, more natural.
Sure.
So these metal items can blend into a garden setting much better than, say, a stark industrial-looking metal box. It's about getting that natural feel without losing the toughness of metal.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, nobody wants their bin to be the main feature of their garden, do they?
Exactly.
So it's kind of the best of both worlds, the look you want plus the durability you actually need.
Precisely. And it also seems to elevate the perceived value of the product itself.
Ah, interesting.
A wood grain finish can sort of suggest it's a step up from basic metal or plastic, maybe a more premium item.
And that's good news for retailers, I imagine.
Now, definitely. The data hints at higher sell-through rates, maybe better profit margins on these. Plus, they just look better on display, Those point-of-sale displays in stores, they're more eye-catching.
We've got some figures here showing just how much momentum this trend has. It looks like the monthly sales really started to climb.
Yes, the monthly figures tell a really compelling story. We saw a peak 476 units sold in just March of 2025.
Wow. Yeah.
And what's really interesting is there were 3 months in a row, March, April, and May of 2025, where sales went over 400 units.
That's quite a jump.
Yeah, if you compare that to early 2024, we're talking growth of over 150%.
Whoa.
So this strongly suggests, well, maybe a seasonal thing, right? Spring gardening season. But it could also mean that the marketing around these is getting more effective. People are seeing them and liking them.
So the desire is clearly growing.
No doubt. Now let's get into the clever tech that makes this mix of natural looks and metal toughness actually work. UV printing.
Okay, right. So we get why people might want metal that looks like wood. But how do you actually do that so it lasts outside? It's not like you could just stick a wood sticker on a bin, right?
Right.
It wouldn't survive the rain and sun.
Chuckles. No, definitely not.
This is where UV printing comes in.
That's absolutely right. UV printing is the key technology here. Think of it like a very, very precise digital inkjet process.
Okay.
Special inks get applied to the metal, and then, this is the crucial part, they're instantly cured or hardened using ultraviolet light.
Instantly.
Instantly. And that process gives some really big advantages.
Such as, what makes it so good for this?
Well, first off, the image quality is incredibly sharp. We're talking up to 1,200 dots per inch.
That's high resolution.
Very. And that's what lets you get those really realistic wood grain patterns with all the fine details. Second, because that ink cures immediately with the UV light, it forms a super strong bond with the coated metal.
Ah, hence the durability.
Exactly. That leads to the excellent outdoor durability we've been talking about.
So how does this UV printing stack up against other ways you might put a pattern on metal? Like, I don't know, heat transfers or maybe just painting it?
That's a really good question. If we compare UV printing to, say, heat transfer or powder coating or even applying laminate films, the benefits become pretty clear.
Okay.
Let's take outdoor durability first. UV printing, it's been tested to handle 1,000 hours of UV exposure without significant fading.
1,000 hours, that's a lot of sun.
It is. Heat transfer methods. They tend to show color degradation much sooner. Powder coating gives you decent durability, but it's not great for complex patterns. And laminate films. Well, they can peel or crack over time, especially outdoors.
Okay, so UD printing wins on longevity. What about just how good the pattern looks, the detail?
Pattern precision is another big win for UV. You can get true high-definition images, really intricate, lifelike wood grains. Heat transfer, sometimes the design can sort of bleed or blur. Powder coating is really just for solid colors, maybe very simple effects. And laminate films, they often just don't have the fine detail you need for a convincing wood look.
And what about the environmental side? That's increasingly important these days. How does UV printing do there?
That's a really important point. The UV printing inks used by reputable makers like Hongmao, they've often got REACH approval.
REACH. What's that?
It's a European regulation. Basically means the chemicals in the inks have been rigorously tested and meet high standards for safety for the environment and for consumers.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. Heat transfer methods can be a bit inconsistent on eco-compliance. Powder coating might involve VOCs, volatile organic compounds. And laminate films, their regulation can sometimes be a bit unclear.
Interesting. So it's not just looks and durability. It could be a more responsible process, too. What about cost? And, can you make loads of these things easily if demand shoots up?
UV printing hits a sort of moderate cost point, and it's highly scalable. So yes, it's good for mass production.
Okay.
Heat transfer can sometimes mean more waste material. Powder coating is cheap for solid colors, but again, not for complex designs. And putting laminate films on, especially on tricky shapes, that can be quite labor-intensive, driving up costs.
So it really sounds like UV printing hits a kind of sweet spot. Great results, lasts a long time, and you can actually produce them efficiently. Now, the info we have also mentions a specific company, Hongmao Garden. What's their role in all this?
Yeah, what's particularly interesting is that Hongmao Garden has really specialized in using UV printing specifically for these metal garden structures. They're not just doing basic flat printing, they've really tailored the whole process for products like these wood grain bins and storage boxes.
Okay, so they're not just using standard UV printers off the shelf. What's special about their setup?
Well, for one, they've developed their own special ink formulas. These are optimized to stick really well to galvanized steel and powder-coated steel, common materials for outdoor stuff.
Right, makes sense.
They also use these automated forehead UV flatbed printers, big machines. This lets them apply all the different colors and layers very quickly and precisely, which is obviously key if you're making thousands of these.
That sounds pretty advanced. But what about the shapes? Bins and boxes aren't always flat squares. They have curves, lids, funny angles.
Exactly. And this is where Hongmao's innovation really shines, I think. They have custom-designed print modules just for those large or irregular parts.
Like curved bin doors.
Precisely, or the lids of storage boxes.
Yeah.
It means they can apply these wood grain patterns across the whole surface, and it looks seamless, like it flows naturally from one part to the next. It doesn't look like a sticker just slapped on. It feels integrated.
And I guess for products designed to live outside, getting certifications is pretty vital.
Absolutely crucial. Hongmao makes a point of highlighting their comprehensive certifications. That includes the full REACH compliance we talked about for the inks,
Okay.
but also passing tough UV aging tests, confirming that 1,000-hour resistance, and salt spray tests, too.
Salt spray.
For corrosion.
Exactly. It checks how well the finish resists corrosion, which is important in coastal areas or places where roads are salted in winter. So it gives you confidence the finish will hold up against all sorts of weather.
So we're talking finishes that look really convincingly like wood, but they can handle sun, rain, even salty air without falling apart.
Yeah.
That's a huge plus compared to actual wood in those conditions.
It really is. And they've applied this tech across quite a range of their products. We're seeing garbage bin covers with incredibly realistic oak, pine, teak effects.
Nice.
Their storage units sometimes feature faux marble or sandstone textures. That's another interesting direction.
Oh, okay, not just wood.
Not just wood. They even do raised garden beds and planters with decorative patterns, maybe floral designs, bark textures, or even patterns that look like soil.
Wait, soil patterns on a planter. That's
Literal.
chuckle slightly. Certainly a unique look. And they also offer these multifunction plant and storage boxes where they can integrate branding or logos right into the design seamlessly. Ah, so businesses could get their logo printed right onto the wood grain.
Exactly. That opens up big possibilities for retailers wanting a unified brand look across different products.
It sounds like this UV printing really gives their products an edge, when it comes to grabbing your attention on the shelf, whether that's a real shelf or online.
That's precisely the value proposition. It boosts the shelf appeal significantly. And it helps with cross-selling, too.
How so?
Well, maybe you're buying plants, and then you see a planter with a really nice bark pattern made with the same tech, and you think, oh, that would look great together.
Right, makes sense.
And we actually have a specific example here. A German retail chain started stocking Hongmao's UV-printed garbage boxes. Within 6 months, they saw a 32% increase in sales for that whole category.
32%. Just from adding these.
That's what the data suggests. It really highlights the real-world impact of making products look better this way.
That's a seriously compelling statistic. Now, I bet listeners have some practical questions buzzing around. Our sources actually hit on some common technical FAQs. Let's tackle those. First one. Will the colors fade, or will the finish peel off after being outside for a while?
Okay, so based on that tough 1,000-hour UV testing and the REACH compliance that Hongmao's products have, the answer is essentially no. These finishes are specifically engineered to handle outdoor life without significant fading or peeling.
Good to know for peace of mind. What about customization? Can retailers or brands ask for specific patterns or colors, maybe to match their store branding or other products?
Absolutely. Hongmao supports color matching using RAL codes.
Ah, the standard European color system.
Exactly. Widely used for coatings and plastics. And yes, they can integrate logos right into the print design, so there's a lot of flexibility there to match different market tastes or brand looks.
So it sounds like maybe even smaller companies could use this tech for their own stuff. What about minimum orders for these custom prints? Do you need to order thousands?
No, and that's another plus, especially for businesses maybe testing the waters or needing smaller runs. The minimum order quantity, the MOQ for UV customization, starts at just 50 pieces per model.
50. That's pretty accessible.
Yeah, it makes it feasible even for smaller batches or more specialized niche products.
And the big question, I suppose. How do these prints really stack up against actual wood? Do they look and feel convincing?
Well, they might not have the exact same feel, the precise tactile texture of real wood grain, but the UV printing tech is remarkably good at replicating the visual appearance.
The look is the main thing, I guess.
It gets the intricate grain patterns, the subtle color shifts you see in different woods, and the massive advantage, of course, is you get that natural look without any of the downsides of real wood outdoors. No rot, no mold, no cracking from the weather.
So it's getting that desired natural vibe without the maintenance headaches you get with actual wood. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main message you want listeners to take away?
I think the central theme here is really about successfully merging great design with real industrial durability in outdoor products. And it's this advanced UV printing tech that's making it happen.
Right.
It lets companies like Hongmao Garden offer stuff that's not just visually appealing, fitting with that trend for natural looks, but also genuinely tough and built to last outside.
So it seems like a win-win. Retailers get appealing products, maybe better margins, brands get to stand out more, and we, the consumers, get nice-looking things for the garden that don't fall apart after one season.
Exactly. Plus, that important flexibility for customization, which is huge in today's market where everyone wants things tailored.
This really gets you thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If UV printing can mimic wood so well on metal for garden boxes, what else could it do? Where else could this go? How might this tech shape the future of outdoor product design? Could it influence what we prefer to see, beyond just garden stuff? Could we see this mix of looks and toughness show up in other weird places, other materials or products? Definitely gives you something to chew on.
It does indeed. The potential applications seem quite broad, really.
Well, thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the Really quite intriguing world of wood grain metal and the UV printing behind it all. Hopefully this detailed look has given you some valuable insights into this market trend and the tech driving it forward.
My pleasure.
We definitely encourage you to think about how this blend of design and durability might apply in your own areas, whether that's business or just your own garden planning.
Good point.
And that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Until our next exploration.